Okay, so I'm working on my next set of coasters. I've chopped the wood, hopefully I've got some footage of that. It's this lovely, wow, I'm not even sure what wood this is. It has this grey bark and this kind of marbled beige and orange figure in it. It's lovely. And it's got this live edge on the pieces. I've trimmed that into slices and then chopped it to length so they fit into each side of the moulds. The moulds I'm using are these flexible silicone ones. This one's a round one, but these are 4 square ones. I have them mounted in these 3D printed supports to support the edges, and on these wooden bases to give them a nice flat bottom. And then on top of that I have built these sort of 3D printed, what would you call that? Rails or guides, which screw onto the base, and then they have this these through holes for machine screws that I can tighten down and pin down the wood to partly to stop it floating and partly to try and seal it to the bottom of the mould and to keep it pressed against the edges around the sides here. Because of the natural flex in the PETG I've used here, as I tighten these, the beams kind of arc, which puts a natural spring pressure on there. So now I need to mix up some clear resin, which is what I'm going to use for this project, and pour it into these moulds. Once we've done the pour and left it for a couple of days, I'll take these out of these, and as I say, I've not used these moulds before, so I don't know what steps will then be required. If there's leakage down the edge of the wood, I may need to trim the edges. These shouldn't need to go through the planer like the last set did, because they should be sufficiently flat. But again, we'll assess that when it comes out. Okay, there's quite a lot of bubbles in this resin. Well, I think I'm making it worse rather than better now. So what I'll do, I'm going to set a timer for myself, come back in 10 minutes. It's got a 40-minute working time, so letting it sit for 10 minutes should not be a problem. 10 minutes, starting now. See you in 10 minutes. Okay, that was my 10-minute rest. Got a cup of coffee, left this resin. Check my clock's not still counting. No, good. And that has helped tremendously with the bubbles. Okay, that used 20 of my 100, so I'm probably going to get all 4 done with this pour. Okay, moving on to the back ones. Still got 35 mils left. I'm going to do the 4th pour. I'm sure I can see bits in this one. So that has used 75 of my 100 mils that I mixed for future reference. I'm going to give those 5 minutes or so, and then I'm going to start poking them to try and get some of the bubbles out. I'm just dipping this stirring stick into the spare resin and then dabbing it on to the cracks, trying to get it to find a natural level. My thinking is the resin in this pot is just going to waste. I'm better to pour it and cut it off, because I can't add it again later. I just need to make sure I don't overflow and make a mess of the moulds. These have had a few minutes. First pour, it's looking pretty good. There's a few surface bubbles. I've got a little barbecue lighter here. I'm just going to try and expand those bubbles without setting fire to anything. There we go, making some of them disappear. Just be careful of my 3D prints a little bit. It is of course right under the 3D print that I've got the worst of these bubbles. One of the reasons I put these all on a tray is so I can manoeuvre them smoothly. There we go, still in shot. Okay, what are these ones looking like? That one's very bubbly. This one's not so bad. Possible big inclusion there. Bit of dust at the bottom. Let's see if I can move that. Yeah, bring it across. Okay, we're now at 12:20, pause at 10, so that's half an hour of the 40 minutes of working time. So now I need to really start thinking about the finishing touches on this. It's start of July here in the UK, gorgeous summer, which is why we're having appears to be a torrential rain shower. Spin the tray one last time. Ooh, you could have put the resin in hot water, 60 degrees, to accelerate bubbles coming out. Using a heat coaster, use a lighter or heat gun. If you're using silicone moulds, you can warm the mould in the oven before pouring the resin. Oh, that's an interesting thought. I mean, it's going to make it tricky with these PETG parts, but that's not an idea. Got coffee. Right, next task is just to leave those alone for 24 to 48 hours, which shouldn't be too hard because I've got work. Okay, well, we've had 48, maybe even more, 48, at least 48 hours for curing now. So it's time to demold, and I haven't used these molds before, so this will be interesting. My plan is to take tension off all of the tie down bars first, and then undo one end of each tie bar so I can get them out. So that's a lot of screw undoing, so I'm using the power driver here. This is where, when watching it back, you'll be able to see that I've missed one of them, and I won't realise it. Okay, so then one end of each of these. So taking the spots off. Well, first impressions, they look pretty good. Demoulding time. That seems to be simple enough. Oh, that got it. The knots come out of the corner. That is a bit annoying. I'll deal with that in a second. Finish the demoulding first before we worry about gluing things back together. Well, I like them. Now, I was hoping that I wasn't going to have to put these through the planer, but as you can probably see, every single one of them has got some degree of splurge underneath. So the question is now, do I sand through that, which I probably do, or do I try and put them through the router, and what do I do about this little bit of tear out? Right then, well, I guess I'm now waiting for the glue to dry. I'm going to debate, probably at great length, whether to plane the surface of these down or sand. I mean, they're quite thick. That's the other thing. They would go through the planer. Chug, 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 chug. That is a tempting thought. Alright, so I've got my 4 coasters lined up on this board, held in by these rails, and I'm going to run it through the thickness planer just to take this surface down. I want to leave most of the meat there on this side, but get it down nice and flat and deal with the overlap of the resin onto the wood. I want to leave them quite thick because I know that the joint between the resin and the bark can be quite weak when I make it thinner. Once I've got that just thinned enough, I'm going to flip them and do the back to deal with all the leak through on the back side. So there'll be a pause while I do that. Okay, post-mortem. My jig is not tight enough. The blade has just simply lifted that into the blade and eaten it wholesale. And I think it will do the same with that one. It's nibbled the edge out of that one. Not good work by me there. Don't think that's in any way salvageable.